In 1948, Palestine was occupied and the State of Israel was born, which led to many confrontations, including the Six-Day War. It was June 5th to 10th of 1967 between Israel and the Arab coalition at the Sinai, Syrian, and Jordanian fronts. Israel came out victorious from this war, but the Arab coalition suffered tragic losses. The war shaped the Middle East's future.
The calamitous Six-Day War was a result of many things. However, most of the tension began after World War II, when Jews were treated badly in Holocaust in Germany and Italy. Because of this, Jews wanted to create their own country. They came to the land that was classified as Palestine. They occupied the land and forcefully took the Palestinians' land. This angered Israel's Arab neighbors because they did not accept Israel as a country. The Arab coalition considered it as a threat. Israel's victory upon the wars of 1948 and 1956 also raised tensions. Since then, the Arab coalition, which was led by Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, wanted to defeat Israel and change the current situation in which they were trapped.
Israel's occupation in 1948 meant that they laid claim to the land they previously classified as Palestinian territory. This caused hatred by its Arab neighbors.
We shall not enter Palestine with its soil covered in sand. We shall enter it with its soil saturated in blood. President of Egypt, Jamal Abdel Nasser, March 8, 1965, showing that the hatred level was high.
Spoke President of Egypt, Jamal Abdel Nasser, at a speech in May 1967. The Arab nations surrounding Israel wanted the Palestinians to go back to their land that they were in before 1948. The way they saw it,
Jamal Abdel Nasser, President of Egypt, in his speech in May 1967. The Arabs believed Palestine was its own country and that Israel was the occupier. Israeli Jews believed that according to a promise by God, they lay claim to the land. This caused a dispute over the land. Over the next 2 decades, tensions rose, often violently.
Israel saw this tension rising to a conflict and took it as an opportunity to gain more land. Israel started building up its military. Meanwhile, President of Egypt, Jamal Abdel Nasser, removed UN peacekeepers on May 16, 1967. This was a huge move. It increased the tensions between Egypt and Israel.
Nasser sent a document to Arab trade unionists on May 26, 1967, requesting to help build up the Arab coalition army. This was a big step that would then start the Six-Day War.
the Six-Day War finally erupted when Egypt blocked Israeli ships from entering through the Straits of Tiran. It was short but a very important war in the Middle East, and it changed the map of the Middle East quite significantly. It lasted from June 5th to June 10th in 1967. It happened through a series of strategic steps. Israel took preemptive action and started to plan Operation Focus.
The first step they took was to spread fake news saying that their soldiers were on vacation and that their pilots were carrying out training sorties as usual. This caught their enemies off guard, giving Israel the unexpected opportunity to strike. Before the operation occurred, Israel didn't want the United States to find out, so they damaged the tracking antenna of the U.S. Embassy. Then, the attack began.
Israel's planes struck Egypt's aircraft while their defenses were effectively off. Egypt, seeming as if it had just woken up, finding it had to defend itself, had to fight for its own. Syria and Iraq tried to defend Egypt, but they lost planes too. Jordan came a bit later. Egypt lost 338 of its aircraft, Jordan lost 28 aircraft, Syria lost 53 aircraft, and Iraq lost 10 aircraft. The Arab coalition had a loss of over 22 times more planes than Israel, who only lost 19 planes. In total, the Arab coalition lost 429 planes and many lives. Israel, meanwhile, also moved troops to the Sinai Peninsula and Jordan, leading to Jordan and Syria's response.
Abba Eban, Israel's foreign affairs minister, gave a good description of what the war looked like on June 6, 1967. Nasser had provocatively brought 5 infantry divisions and 2 armored divisions up to our very gates. 80,000 men and 900 tanks were poised to move.
Also, Israel's Prime Minister Levi Eshkol told the world that Israel is safe and has a power on June 6, 1967. Peace has now returned with our forces in control of all the city and its environs.
Operation Focus gave Israel complete air control, leaving ground fighting as the Arab coalition's only option. The rest of the fighting was on the ground. By June 7, 1967, the third day of the war, Egypt was surrendering and went out of the war. Jordan, seeing this, had also given up fighting and surrendered, giving Israel their part of the holy city of Jerusalem. This left Syria as the only country left to support the Arab coalition's side of the war. Syria kept fighting against Israel until it was eventually defeated on June 10, 1967, the sixth and final day of the war.
The Six-Day War was fought on three main fronts: the Sinai Front, the Jordanian Front, and the Syrian Front. The main two parties were Israel and Arab Coalition. The Arab Coalition attacked in retaliation of Israel's offenses, but they were unable to lead successful attacks. In the end, Israel came out with the victory.
At the end of the Six-Day War, many people's lives were changed forever. The war was short but costly on both sides. The Arab coalition suffered many casualties amounting to 23,550, while Israel had suffered 5,500 casualties.
Israel took a big portion of land from the Arab coalition. It took the Golan Heights from Syria, West Bank from Jordan, and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. This was a big triumph for Israel because they won more land in the war. This caused Israel to triple in size.
The war caused 178,000 new Palestinian refugees and 115,000 new Syrian refugees that left or got kicked out of new Israeli territories. This caused a huge new refugee problem in Palestine that is still not solved yet today. To settle the question of Jewish elements in Palestine and other Arab countries is in accordance with national and racial interests of Arabs and along the lines similar to those used to solve the Jewish question in Germany and Italy.
Hajj Amin al-Husseini explaining how Palestinians in Israel are treated.
"6 years later came the Yom Kippur War, a result of the Six-Day War. After nearly 15 years, in 1982, Israel gave back Egypt the Sinai Peninsula for an agreement to close the Egypt-Gaza border. Israel offered a portion of the West Bank strip to Jordan, but Jordan demanded that they get all of the land they lost, which led them to getting none. Israel offered nothing to Syria.
The West Bank is now known as part of the Palestinian state. There has been border issues that still remain unresolved between the two sides of the land until today.
In addition, Israel started building illegal settlements in the West Bank. Israel began using religious justifications for doing this. Israel had gained most of the power in the Middle East because of this war. Since after the war, Arab coalition got weaker and lost military power and could not keep up with Israel.
Peace for us means the destruction of Israel." Quoted in the Times UK, August 5, 1977, explaining how they think peace will happen again and think of it as unacceptable to happen.
Overall, the war completely reshaped the politics of the Middle East on a domestic and international level. This war shaped out the future of the Middle East.
With Israel's claim over the land previously owned by the Arab coalition, they had a triumphant victory. However, the Six-Day War was known to the Arabs as a Neksa, Arabic for the setback. This was because they had lost so much land, plus now all of Jerusalem belonged to Israel. However, both of the sides shared one loss. They had both lost in total over 10,000 people, many of them being innocent.
While Israel celebrated its triumph and the Arabs mourned their losses, both remained unaware that their conflicts would escalate into a war 6 years later. That war would be known as the Yom Kippur War. This war lasted 3.5 times longer than the Six-Day War, and there were over 40,000 casualties. This result of the Six-Day War was a huge tragedy.
Israel, after gaining Jerusalem, said that it would be open to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. However, Palestinians from the West Bank and the Gaza Strip had a very tough time being able to enter Jerusalem and were very restricted in places they could go to. The war left Israel standing triumphant, while the Arab coalition was left in the dust, facing tragedies that still last today.